There are way too many expensive and high trim level reviews out there, especially on trucks. So today I've got the 2020 Ford F-150 XL trim with the STX and power equipment package. And I'm going to show you everything you get at a lower price truck. In fact, this one's actually going for $36,000 and it has the 5-liter V8, something that a lot of you are probably going to look for. I'm going to show you everything you get on the outside, the inside, and we're going to go for a test drive. Let's get started. Now, real quick, before we get started, I want to give a big thank you and shout out to Rockwall Ford in Rockwall, Texas. They were nice enough to let me take out this F-150 to show you guys. If you're in the DFW area, please be sure to check out Rockwall Ford. I'll put their information in the description below. Now, I want to start things off under the hood because this one has the 5-liter V8 engine that a lot of you in the other videos I've made on the F-150 say that you would prefer. Personally, I would prefer the 5-liter V8 as well because it can still put out 395 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque, and it's naturally aspirated. Now, on the lot, they had a whole bunch of other vehicles in this exact trim level, about $3,000 cheaper though, with the 2.7 liter EcoBoost, which is still a V6, still can put out 400 pound-feet of torque, but less horsepower. That's still a really potent engine. If you don't upgrade to the V8 or the EcoBoost Turbo, you're going to have a 3.3 liter naturally aspirated V6. As long as you don't go with that naturally aspirated V6, you'll have a 10-speed automatic transmission, and we'll talk about how it drives in the test drive. Our particular model, MPGs, will vary from 17 in the city to 23 highway with 2-wheel drive, or 15 city, 21 highway with 4-wheel drive. Now, as far as towing numbers goes, it really depends on the configuration. It depends on the axle ratio in the back. I'll put a brochure where it's got all of that laid out with all the F-150s, all the engine choices, and exactly which towing number corresponds to that. You'll see commercials where the F-150 can tow 13,200 pounds, which it can, but not configured like this. With this one, with the 5-liter V8, and of course you need the proper towing package, you can tow 9,100 pounds. I'll talk about the axle ratios in the back, but if you upgrade the axle ratio, you can add a whole nother 1,000 pounds to 10,100 pounds of towing. That's still a healthy number considering the price of the truck, the trim level of the truck, and you've got a strong V8 under the hood. And it also comes standard with a 26-gallon fuel tank, but you can option up to a 36-gallon fuel tank if you want. Now, to take a quick look at the outside, like I said, this has the STX package. It also has the XL power equipment package. I believe that's 101A. So it's not completely bare bones, and the STX actually gives you kind of a unique look. You've got this black mesh grille. You've got all body color surround, including the bumper, front and back. So the STX gives you a little bit of that. You've even got some 20-inch wheels on the side of the vehicle. Let me know what you think of that. You even get optional fog lights here. I would prefer smaller wheels, but 20-inch wheels are certainly stylish with 275/55 tires. The paint color here is called Iconic Silver. It looks good on this F-150. It is metallic-y and glossy. Dimensionally, as we have this configured right here with the Super Crew, it's about 232 inches long. So these are some big trucks. They're definitely bigger than the mid-sizers and even some of the older full-size trucks. As I said, we have the Super Crew. This is the full size, the big boy with the cab. You can get a regular cab, you can get a Super Cab, which is the extended cab basically, or the Super Crew. So of the configurations, which one would you go for? Ground clearance is going to vary from about 8.5 to 9.5 inches, 8.5 on 2-wheel drive, and 9.5, 9.4 technically with 4-wheel drive. Now, one thing I'd like to talk about is the fact that we have the 3.15 axle ratio standard on this trim. It is a non-limited slip, but you can upgrade to a 3.55 and get an electronic locking rear, and that kind of makes a big difference with traction, especially if you're 2-wheel drive or with towing numbers. And I'll put those towing numbers in the description below, and we'll talk about some more of that in a little bit. In the back, like I said, you get the body color bumper. You've got F-150 embossed back here instead of the upper trims, which are going to have kind of a whole label like limited running across the badge. But I think this looks pretty nice as well. Now, the box configurations are going to vary depending on the cab that you get too. You can still get a 8-foot box if you want the long box. You can get a 6.5-foot box or the 5.5-foot, which is the common one with the Super Crew, which is what we have right here. This tailgate is lockable and removable. It's not the soft opening like a Dams type of tailgate, but it's still not that heavy because it's aluminum. And then once you get back here, you're going to get 4 standard tie downs that can actually be capped and covered with this drop-in bed liner. You can get a spray-in bed liner as well, or the movable box link tie down system, and even LED lights, but it's pretty basic back here, and the wheel wells are certainly wide enough to fit some 4x8 sheets. And for those of you that might need some help or some assistance getting into the bed, it still has this step tailgate. It's been a while since I've done this, but you can lower it down pretty quick and easy. And then it's nice because you have a handle that you can grab onto to get in and out. Now, payload is going to vary depending on the configuration of the truck. On F-150s, the max payload is over 3,200 pounds, but as configured with this 5-liter, it's 2,140 pounds. That's still a real healthy number. Now, as we go ahead and hop inside and take a look inside, so this gives us the cloth seats with the manual adjustability. One thing that I really appreciate is that they actually have lumbar support. Both driver and passenger give you adjustable lumbar support. It's just the slide forward and recline. There's no up and down function. It would be kind of nice to see that, but the cloth on here actually feels pretty nice. It looks pretty nice. The seats are comfortable and have a decent amount of plushness to them as well. And even though the seats can't move up and down, there's still quite a bit of space for anybody with headroom, leg room, hip room, shoulder room. It's a really spacious area. And one thing to note is that we actually have the bucket seats here. The very base, without any of the packages, is going to come standard with a bench seat and the flip up middle armrest. So what do you prefer? The buckets like this with the big console, or the bench kind of like the old school style? And one nice feature for those of you with mobility issues is you get a grab handle right here. Also one on that side, because you do get a little bit of a jump up to get in there, but it's really not that high compared to what it could be. Now, as we take a quick look at the interior, so first of all, on our trim, we're going to get a harder material up on the top if you like to rest your elbow up there. This is a pretty durable feeling material here, though. It's not necessarily a soft armrest, but it should hold up over time. Same big Ford grab handle, little storage nook, and some extra storage down there. As far as a bottle goes, this does stick out a little bit, but you do have a pretty good amount of space. Now, one thing that a lot of you will probably appreciate, some of you might not like it, is the fact that you actually get a real key. There's no push button start, no remote start. The key flips out, and when you start it up, you got the typical Ford chime, got that nice burly V8 when you start it up. So starting on the steering wheel is no different. And remember, we have the power equipment package, which gives us more than just a typical bare bones base. But you've got a lot of steering wheel controls, very easy to use, cruise control, your information display, even your audio controls over here. This is not a leather wrapped wheel though, but it is comfortable to hold on to. You've got some decent grips up at the top. And then the bare bones model won't give you this same size screen, but we get this with this particular truck. You've got your physical gauges left and right, and then you still got your heat gauges up above, and I hope they never ever go away. I hope they keep those for these trucks. But like I said, in our model, we get this 4.2-inch screen, which still gives you plenty of information. So you can scroll through a whole bunch of different stuff on here. You can kind of customize what you see as well, but there's really a lot of good information on here, more than you might expect for a vehicle of this class, I guess you could say, or maybe on this vehicle of this trim level. And then as we go ahead and move over, one thing I really appreciate is the fact that Ford gives you a storage cubby right up here. This is also softly lined, so if you throw some stuff up there, it's not going to slide around. It's just an extra little storage nook. And one thing that you've got to realize is this is a two-wheel drive truck. There are a lot of two-wheel drive trucks here where I am. Personally, I would go four-wheel drive, but if you don't need it, then why get it? So this is a little coin holder, but we got a little storage cubby down here. You would have your trailer brake controller, which is optional, and your 4x4 controls. And if you get a four-wheel drive F-150, of course you get the 4 high, 4 low, but you can also have an automatic four-wheel drive. So it will be two-wheel drive and then four-wheel drive as needed with some off and on slippery situations. And then right here, instead of a smaller 4.2-inch screen, our model actually gives us the 8-inch screen with our STX. It's the Ford Sync 3 system. It's fairly easy to use. One thing I wish is that there were maybe a couple more physical buttons like around the edge for just like an audio shortcut type of thing, but you've got some buttons down here. You've got a big volume knob, big tuning knob, and this is still fairly easy to use, and it gives you a 6-speaker system. Plus, you also get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and we even have an option for Sirius XM on here. Right up above, you do have the auto stop start. You can turn that off, but it does revert to being back on. I believe that there are some aftermarket kits to actually completely disable it if you wanted to. You just got your single manual controls here, no automatic temperature or dual zone climate on this trim. You'd have to move up for that, but nice and basic, easy to use. Also, right up over there, you get a 12-volt power outlet, and I believe some F-150s actually give you the 3-prong 120 volt or 110 volt. And then down below, you got a couple more USB ports. Nice little storage tray here, and this is actually softly lined as well, or kind of rubberized, so stuff doesn't slide around quite as much. And then we have the column shifter. You can circle through your drive modes here. You can actually manually control right here as well, control your shifts. So you've got extra space right here. Instead of a shifter here or a dial shifter, you've got a huge storage bin. Got another little storage cubby and a couple really good sized bottle holders. I didn't bring my bottle, I forgot my bottle, but these bottle holders work great for a lot of different sized drinks. Big giant armrest. This has kind of the same rubberized material instead of a softer leather. Again, this is probably really durable, but still comfortable enough to put your arm on. Open that up and you got a huge storage area, sliding tray, removable tray. So you're good to go with that. And there's also one more 12-volt power outlet down there. Ford still gives you a little cubby, kind of a little storage shelf over there, and a locking glove box as well. As you can see, the door handle, or the grab handle's even on the passenger side, and you get LED dome light, which is kind of surprising, or LED overhead light, but there's no sunglass holder or anything quite like that. No moonroof in here, and then our visor doesn't actually have a mirror. So some of them do, this one doesn't. Now, even though we don't have towing mirrors or blind spot indicators on this trim, you still have pretty good sized mirrors. They can manually fold, and you got that little extra blind spot indicator or possible trailer mirror. Now, some of the F-150s I've showed you have the trailer backup assist and a 360 camera. This one does not, but you still get dynamic guidance lines, and that little dotted line acts as a trailer hitch, so it's the hitch assist, back right up to a hitch pretty easily with just this camera. So like I said, I'm showing you this one so you know what a lower trim F-150 gets. If you want to see how nice and how plush some of the other F-150 vehicles are, check the description below to check out a limited trim, King Ranch, Platinum, even XLT. Now to take a quick look at the back seat, so you kind of have the same materials on the door. You still get a good storage cubbies down there, and a bottle holder. And for your backseat passengers, they also get a grab handle to get up. And look at this. I'm 5'9", so I'm not tall and I don't need a lot of space. But 6-footers and up, there is a ton of space back here. It is just insane leg room, hip room. The back seat of the F-150 Super Crew is massive. It's nice to see that you get a mat pocket behind there and a mat pocket behind that seat. You get a couple good sized cup holders there as well. Even on this low trim, you still get AC vents, you get a 12-volt power outlet, and you still get a couple of USB ports. So that's a big plus for your backseat passengers, especially if you're going to use this as a family hauler. And this entire floor is super flat, so you can fold the seats up in a 40-60 fashion, and it is a super flat load floor. You can even fold the back down and access your jack kit back there. So very practical backseat area. One thing I wish is that we had like a center folding armrest, but you don't get that back here. It's just a nice flat bench. And again, headroom is really good. There's even some cutouts in the ceiling, so you should have no problem fitting back here. All right, y'all, we are just getting going on the test drive. Go ahead and fire it up. And you get the nice kind of big burly sound, although it's still really quiet in this cabin. So still get a column shifter, as you can see. Do you prefer the column shifter or kind of the twist style shifter, or the actual down here shifter? Let me know what you think. But in this test drive, I'm going to give you my impressions on this 5-liter V8, because I have not driven the 5-liter V8. I've driven the 2.7 liter EcoBoost, the 3.5 liter EcoBoost, both the regular and the high output. I've also even driven the diesel, the small diesel as well. So it'll be nice to get behind the wheel of this V8 And this is paired with the 10-speed transmission. And the thing about the 10-speed in these Fords is that they seem to all behave differently in every vehicle. So just from a regular go, now that was smooth getting going, and you get a little bit of engine sound in here, but you really don't get a lot. And right off the bat, my first impression of the F-150, even when I drove it earlier on, or a couple years ago, is that it's quiet. I mean, you don't always, if you're not familiar with trucks, especially new trucks, you don't necessarily expect them to be quiet. But coming from the mid-90s truck and the 2006 that I drove, this is definitely quieter than those. And many of you probably aren't going to buy a truck and expect or care if it's quiet, but if you take this on long trips, you're going to really enjoy that and appreciate that, especially if you got a family. The glass on this window is actually laminated. It's double pane, which in a lot of other vehicles, not just talking about trucks, but SUVs, cars, in order to get double pane, you got to have like a top trim, and not even then do you always get that. So even on our XL STX, we get that double pane window. And one thing about the F-150, and we're not really on like a zigzaggy road or anything, but the steering is pretty light. It's not it doesn't have the best feedback as opposed to some of the other pickups in this class or the lower class, but one positive to that is that it's fairly easy to maneuver. Like if you're parking, the steering wheel is easy to move, it's not laborious, so that's a big benefit. It's not like it's sloppy steering, it's not that at all. It's actually well-mannered, it's easy to handle, especially at high speeds on like the interstate, you know, pulling a boat, whatever you may be doing. It's easy to keep this in its lane. Now in a little bit here, we'll try to get on it with this 5-liter and see how it sounds, see how it feels. But talking about ride comfort here, the F-150, so with any kind of fully boxed frame, a rigid frame, a solid axle, you're gonna have a little more jitters, more jitteriness, bounciness, I guess you could call it. And of course you get some of that in here. It feels and rides like a full-size truck, but it's actually still fairly compliant. It's a compliant ride that's not harsh at all. And if you had some weight in the back of the truck, obviously we don't, but if you get some back there, that's gonna help smooth things out a little bit. Or if you're pulling, you know, a trailer of some sort. So while we're at a stop, talking about ergonomics real quick, I love the little convenience of all the different cubbies and storage areas. The armrest is in a good spot. The steering wheel is comfortable to hold on to, even though this isn't the nice leather wrapped steering wheel. You don't need it. And there are some hard touch materials in here. The armrest and padding isn't necessarily like soft, but it's probably durable. And in a truck, if you're not spending a bunch of money anyways, you're probably not going to care, and you're going to prefer durability anyways. The screen is within reach. You've got your drive mode selector, even your manual shift controls on the column shifter here. That actually frees up some space so you don't have to have an actual shifter down here. So that's one big benefit. Let's go ahead and put the pedal down a little bit. You get a nice sound out of this engine. Even though it is still fairly subdued and quiet, you get a real nice sound. You've got that V8. It feels like a naturally aspirated engine. So that's something that I want to talk about. So if you, naturally aspirated engine that we have right here, if you've ever driven a turbo or never driven a turbo, they drive completely different. So some people probably won't honestly notice, but in terms of daily driving and performance, there's a pretty big difference. Let's go ahead and get on it again. And it was pretty responsive just a second ago, but it sounds real good. And that was pretty smooth. Not pedal down by any means, but here's the thing. Naturally aspirated engine, in order to get the power, in order to get the torque, you have to get those RPMs to climb. So you've got to get into the pedal a little bit more and wait a little bit in order for the power to come out. Now if you're driving with the turbo, as soon as the RPMs get up to about 2,000 RPM, give or take a little bit, you start to get an immediate boost, kind of a punch in the back of power. Turbos are usually torque heavy, which is the case with the 2.7 liter, and naturally aspirated engines are usually horsepower heavy. So you get more power with naturally aspiration and more torque with a turbo. But this 5-liter actually has more torque than it does horsepower, which is common with a truck. And the way that they have it set up is that the torque actually does come out fairly early. That was really nice and smooth. That sounded very good too. So far I really like the way this 5-liter is paired with the 10-speed transmission. It's gonna do a great job of putting you in the optimal gear when you're towing, as well as just in daily driving for fuel efficiency too. Now unfortunately I have not been able to tow with the F-150 with any of its engines, but that's where you're gonna see a difference. You're gonna feel like it's a little bit more effort to tow with the naturally aspirated engine versus a turbo, because as soon as you put the pedal down a little bit, you're gonna get a pretty good boost with the turbo. But with the naturally aspirated engine, you've got a very strong engine right here. I actually have an uncle who has a 5-liter F-150. He actually bought that after he got rid of his 3.5-liter EcoBoost, and he missed the fact that the EcoBoost towed very well. That 3.5-liter is very potent, very powerful, but he wanted basically the security with the 5-liter V8, the reliability, even though some of those EcoBoost engines have gone a long ways. But in terms of daily driving the F-150, although today I have it for a very short period of time, I have driven it for a while before, and I've driven it long distances. It's been comfortable, especially for a full-size truck. If you have not driven any of the modern full-size trucks, you will be pleasantly surprised just how comfortable they are, how spacious they are, how quiet they are. Efficiency still isn't that great, but it certainly is a lot better than it used to be. So what do y'all think of the 5-liter V8 versus an EcoBoost? Which one would you go with? Let's go ahead and wrap things up. So what do you think of this $36,000 V8 F-150 STX? Now, if it was me, I would probably honestly go for the 5-liter V8. I like the V8s, I like naturally aspirated engines, but of course you can still go with a 2.7-liter, the 3.3 V6, even the 3.5 EcoBoost if you want. So it's nice to know you have some options, and there's plenty more options available in trim levels up above this. I'll put a link to those videos in the description below if you want to check that out. Thank you again for watching. Be sure to check out some of these other videos and subscribe for weekly reviews. Thanks again to Rockwall Ford. Hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll catch you next time.